All right, welcome everyone to this week's Zoom. It's Tyler here, part of the Team Let's Eat group, owner of WolversofWallstreetFX, and we have the week, technically the first week of April, the 3rd through the 9th, and we got a couple pairs we're going to be analyzing for you guys today. Same as last week, actually, the same pairs. So we got the gold, of course, we have Bitcoin as always, and pound yen. So let's actually start with the pound yen this time. And we're going to run it back all the way to the weekly. And as you can see, this past week, we had some pretty extravagant moves. The first few days of the week, price absolutely exploded. And I mean, how many pips is this? 370 pips, and then it went right back down, and it pushed all the way down 550 pips down. So huge movements on the pound yen, and it closed with a very large wick to the upside. So right away, that tells me that there is a lot of sell pressure coming in here. So let's investigate that further. But before we move down the time frames, as you can see, I have this candle open. That is why this line is here, and as you can see, it lines up with the previous structure, and I have this past week's low marked as well. So let's dive into the 1 day time frame and delete some of this stuff here. So what I'm looking at here is I'm going to move this up here at first. We see this level of support around essentially 156 or 160, and if we look on the bottom of that, we can see just wicks. So every time price pushed below 160, it immediately pushed back up and it closed the day out above 160. So that tells me that at the moment right now there is also a lot of buy pressure. So what I believe is based off of this daily sort of buy pressure, I think we are going to see price push up, which would be great because there's two situations. Either this next candle is going to be bearish and it'll close lower than here, or it'll be bullish and it'll, push up into this area. In the instance that it's bearish, this next weekly candle will come up and make a wick. Then it'll push down. Obviously, in the instance that it's bullish, it would be up here anyway. So whether this thing is going to tip over or it's going to continue up, either way, I believe right now it is going to go up. So let's dive in a little bit more, and we'll go to the 4 hour. And this is what I'm seeing here. This major support area, as we can see, we wicked down to 159, but this is where the major or the majority of the support is coming from. So what we can see is let's push up. We have a low, higher high, higher low. This is that massive push. All right, then we stalled here for a couple days, chopped around. As you can see, we went up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, and then we pushed down in here and we grabbed this liquidity from this area, these lows down here, and now we are seeing support right here. And as you can see here, this is the high, and we've actually broken above that high, and we've stalled out right here, which is expected because the market is pretty choppy right now. What I believe is that we will see price continue up and at least test these highs, because these wicks right here, I want you to notice how price pushed up in here, immediately pushed down, and then you can see how it pushed up in here and rejected, and then this candle yet again pushed up in here and then pushed all the way back down, and that's actually where it dumped from, down here. So what that tells me is that there is lots of liquidity and sell orders in this area, and this is going to be the first target for where I'm buying to. Now if we break through this with ease, then I believe we might actually have a few week swing trade of coming up and breaking that high and pushing further into this weekly high right here that I marked. If we push up here and we start rejecting very heavily and we also line that up with fundamentals of the yen gaining strength or the pound losing strength, then I believe we will see liquidity grabbed from up here, and then we will push down at least to this level of 157, which would be like 600 pips. So with that in mind, what I'm looking for right now is the buys. So when I am looking for buys, I think, okay, where is the next area that, or where's a good area to buy from? So let's take a look at the most recent daily candles. Okay, so these three right here, we can see huge push down. Okay, this candle tried pushing up, push down, closed bearish, and then this candle pretty much immediately took off right from this area. So judging how the dailies work and kind of as you can see how this formation happened, see how price pushed up. So we know price is going to continue higher. The next daily candle pushed down and created a large wick. That is going to be what I'm looking for on the next day, possibly even two. So what levels interest me? We're actually going to go to the 4 hour. This is that daily low of the last candle, and this, I don't want to use a line actually. This area down here is the low of that middle candle, right? We had the 1, 2, 3. Okay, this is the low of the second candle. This is the low of the third candle. So in my opinion, I believe what we're going to see is price push down into these areas, specifically between these two areas, two levels, and then we're going to push up into 162.5. So also if I attach the VWAP right here, which is where the buy orders first came in, you can see that that lines up very, very well with the VWAP. So let me delete that line for a minute. As you guys know, I've been using this VWAP a lot lately, and when I'm looking to buy the market, I only buy it when it's under the VWAP. And as you can see, these areas where I'm looking to buy the pound yen from lines up perfectly with the lower VWAP. And this area more specifically, so I'm actually going to keep that line off. And what I'm really looking for is price to hit this mid 159 area, so 159.6-ish. And that is where I'm going to be looking for a buy opportunity. Now with that, I don't think when we push down here that we're going to stay here for long. As you can see here, this is, I mean, this is quite a long time actually. This is 12 hours. I'm expecting something similar to this. So I guess 12 hours is relative, you know, to determine if that's a long time or not. But I'm not expecting it to hang out here and chop around and do all this, right? Because we already pushed up here. We already broke the high and we have the support here. So what I believe, it's going to push down here just to grab the liquidity, and then it's going to come right back up and go to our target up here. And again, if it breaks this high, we could be swinging this trade for a week or two into these weekly highs, which I can show here in a minute. So just real quick on the 2 hour time frame, just to get a little bit zoomed in view, you can see we have this resistance right here, right? So it's expected that price is stalling. I mean, it stalled essentially all day Friday at this point, and then it dropped slightly, and then it started to close looking a little bullish. So again, what I'm expecting is price just to come down here and grab liquidity, not come down here and hang out and chop around and, you know, do all that. I think it's going to come down here, get its orders in, and push right back up. It's not going to hesitate. So I'm actually going to set an alert um, between the mid and lower VWAP just so I know that it's pushing into the area, and I can be, you know, alerted when that's pushing down in there. And that's essentially it for the pound yen. So right off the bat, I'm looking to buy right in this area, and then once price gets in here, I'll clear the chart and reanalyze, and we'll see what happens, what type of reaction we get from here, and we can see, are we going to sell from this area, or are we going to break it and hold our long position from down here? So we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, but for now, that would be the plan, and that would also look very nice on the daily because that would create a nice wick down here. Even if it doesn't close up at the high, it would create a nice wick right here and follow that by the next day with the same pressure, right? So let's say it opened right here, closed down here. Let's say we get a small wick, and then we start to see the actual bullish pressure come in. So with that being said, let's move on to the next pair. Oh wait, first let me show you these weekly levels in case we are going to make these new highs. I have the high of this wick, which is also kind of the retest of this area. So that's why I have this level marked. And I'm not going to mark them yet because I think it's very possible that we're just going to come up to 152, that buy target area, and then possibly sell down to this level before we consider anything major, which would be running up into these highs. So I'm waiting for that to happen, waiting to cross that bridge. But yeah, that's kind of the overall outlook of this next week. So essentially just buying from this area up into 156.2, which would be a solid 280 pips roughly, almost 300 pips depending on how low we can get an entry. So very solid trade coming here. Gold. So gold, I believe, is in line for some crazy buy longs, and last week we actually got a buy entry right at the bottom of this weekly wick, right here at 1896, and the target is 2100, which is a new all-time high. I strongly believe that over the next even 3 or 4 weeks, we will see this push up into 2,100. So I'm personally not closing any partials on the trade. The only thing I'm doing is looking to enter more every week as we get new opportunities. So let's kind of recap that, and then we can dive into the next possible new opportunities. So what I'm marking is this low right here, because as you can see, we have this 1, 2, 3. See how this one is lower than that one? That is a pattern that gold uses a lot when it's about to explode. As you can see right here, we have 1, 2, and then 3, which is lower than that one. We even have it right here, 1, 2, 3. You could even do it right here, 1, 2, 3. Right? You could do it all over. We also have this version, the 1, 2, 3, which they're all lower than each other or higher, depending on which way you're going. Anyway, 1 day time frame, I marked those highs, and I already highlighted this area. As you can see, this is why it's highlighted. Look how perfectly this support area lines up. We can see we got liquidity grabs right here on the 1, 2, 3, but this is the major support right here. So I'm going to dive into the 4-hour. Actually, I'm going straight to the 2-hour. I've been using the 2-hour a lot more, and I've been using the 3-hour too, but for right now we're going to use the 2-hour. So this is where we took that entry on Monday. I believe it was Monday. No, it was Tuesday. It was Tuesday. So we can see when price originally spiked out of here, my analysis was in this time I was expecting price to pull into 1903, and as you can see, it only hit 1910 and then it exploded. And as it was starting to come down, I kept that analysis the same. And the morning of Tuesday, we can see price drained and it spiked out that low perfectly, and then it immediately pushed back up, and this is exactly where we took the entry. We did have a initial entry up here that got stopped out, kept focus, and it pushed up. We saw the rejection I'll show you on the 30-minute time frame. Look how perfect this rejection is. So we took the second entry, and we've been holding that ever since. And what I'm expecting this week going forward is price to respect this area right here. So I don't think we will see much further downside movement from this area that we've already been testing. So Friday was NFP, and we can mark, I'm just going to mark it with that. We could see right when NFP happens, we had some crazy movements. We had huge wicks right here showing the buy pressure coming in, and then price slowly pushing down the rest of the day, actually tapping just ever so slightly lower than right here, pushed back up, and pretty much went sideways ever since. So what I'm expecting is a relatively small move down because every weekly candle needs a wick. So obviously this is going to push down to some degree to create that wick. However, I'm expecting we stay right in this area. Probably, I would like to see it not even go lower than 1918 because that's like 70 pips lower, which is plenty. It doesn't, the wick doesn't need to be 200 pips, right? It could easily be 70 pips. In fact, this candle right here, it has no wick, right? This one has no wick. This one has no wick. So I am expecting a wick on this week, but as you can see, it doesn't even need to have one. Normally they do. I mean, you look at all the candles, like 97% of the candles have wicks, right? But what I'm expecting is something very small, kind of like this example or this one. This is a better example because it's bullish, or even this example. You get my point. You see how these massive candles, this again, this is a weekly time frame. They have minuscule wicks. I mean, this candle pushed up a total of 700 pips, and the wick is 58 pips. You know what I mean? Let's do example 2 right here. This wick is 55 pips. This candle is 500 pips, right? And we already saw massive liquidity being grabbed out from this area, basically below 1920. So yeah, that brings me to believe that we will see a small wick. In fact, if I mark these weekly levels right here, we'll probably see a wick hit 1920 and then explode, which would make sense because these wicks, these examples were 50 pips, and that would be roughly 50 pips. So yeah, with gold, this week I'm mainly just holding the position and seeing what happens later in the week. Depending on how price sets up, we could look for another entry. But I'm mainly looking to just hold the position and not really take any more trades until we break this high. Okay, this high is 1965. At the point where we blast through this, whether we just hit these levels right here, right, or we push up here, or we hit 2000, no matter how high we go, once we become higher than 1960, I will be looking for a retest of this area, and that's probably where I will take the third entry, because we actually got one entry here on NFP, and then we got a second, or sorry, on Tuesday, and then we got a second entry here on NFP. So I'm waiting for an explosive move up, possibly to high 19s, and then a pullback into 1960 area, and that is where I will look to take a third entry using the profit from the first two, because that would be essentially, if I split that in the middle, that'd be like 500 pips profit that we're using to take another entry. And this whole flow of what I just said is essentially this, but on a very grand scale. So as you can see here, we made the wick, we came back, we pushed up, we came back again, and then we finally pushed up, right? So see the scale of this? See how this high is about halfway, like literally right here, this is the halfway point. It's literally halfway, and then it came back, and then it broke that halfway point right here. And then what happened is it pulled back into where it took off from, and then we saw the next leg of a huge explosion. That's a very similar concept of what I'm looking for to happen here. Again, just on a bigger scale. So I want to see this area broken, and then I want to see it pulled back. Even I would even be fine with seeing it pulling back, into 1950s. Right? It all depends on what the market does, and we'll cross that bridge when it comes time. So yeah, we'll see what happens, and we can take the entry at that point. That might not even happen this week, right? This week we might see a huge push up, and then next week we get the pullback. So this week for gold is mainly just watching it. If price does happen to break lower than here, then as long as it does not break 1890s, we can take a third entry down in this area. But again, I really do not think that's going to happen. We had the 1, 2, 3 liquidity spikes. We're breaking structure, we're pulling back. We had NFP generate liquidity and confuse a lot of people. And think if NFP generates a lot of volatility, and if we look at what happened at NFP, it went completely sideways. And if we look at the sideways movement, this to me is very bullish accumulation movement because we pushed up, and then look, even right here, okay, this is the where NFP came out. Wicks, right, push down, lots of wicks respecting this area, push down, another major wick, push down again, popped right back out, and then the market was about to close, so obviously it goes sideways, right? So if price was going to push down, I feel like it would have on NFP. It would have used that volatility, it would have used that news, and it would have pushed down, but it didn't. It pushed down ever so slightly. It pushed down into these areas right here of orders. Obviously, every time price made that low, it exploded. So that tells me there's lots of orders in these lows right here. It pushed down into those areas, but it didn't break it. It didn't come down here. This was the major spike, and I believe now we're just going to see that slight pullback, and then we're going to see some crazy movement this week. And yeah, that's it for gold. I hope that was pretty clear and easy to understand. I didn't want to over complicate it too much. And if I move this VWAP to when price exploded, you can see that lines up very well. Actually, this was technically where it first started. You can see it lines up very well with where we're buying from here. So yeah, on the 2 hour, you can see lots of wicks right here. So leads me to believe that we are going to see basically immediate bullish pressure on gold this week. And moving forward to Bitcoin. Oh, let me get a drink. We're going to start on the week. Whoa, whoa, whoa. We're going to start on the weekly. The analysis hasn't really changed since last week. All right, what I'm looking for is a spike into this area and then a major sell off, like 2,000 pips. I was actually told it's 20,000 pips, Sean. Uh, but I think it's 2,000. Nevertheless, let's dive in to the 3-day cycle because with Bitcoin specifically, I haven't back tested it a lot on other pairs. I know gold it does work pretty well, but Bitcoin specifically, the 3-day cycle works so good because look at every time price pivots. Okay? Now you're looking at this, you might say, well, look, right? But we'll get in that in a minute, okay? Because see the 2, the 3, every time price dumps, there's typically a wick higher than when it started to accumulate. And as you can see, we did not get that here. In fact, we are now pushing up, and this closes in 3 hours. So in 3 hours, if we're still up here around the mid 46,000s, I mean, it's not pivoting yet, but I believe we will pivot up in here. So what I have marked is this high right here of this. See this whole area? This is all, I'm going to highlight it real quick. This is liquidity. And as you can tell, price had initial reaction to that liquidity. But we left something. We left this high untouched. That's an issue because every time price dumps, it taps the high out. When price dumped right here, it even tapped that high out, right? When price dumped here, you can't really see it, but this wick is very slightly higher than that one. Right here, here, I could do it on the bottom. This wick is higher, right? Right here, this wick is lower. Right here, right here, right here. I mean, I could show you so many examples. Look, right here, right here, right here. I'm just going to keep going so you guys get the point. Right here, right here. You guys get it? Right here. This one's a little different. Okay. But you understand what I'm getting at. So that's what I want to see. I want to see price come up in this area. So let's take a look at the 4 hour now. Oh, sorry. Let's go to the daily actually. Let's look at what price is doing now. As we could see, price had that initial reaction. We got some wicks, and we pushed down and we wicked out this low, and we got a ton of buy pressure, and that was NFP, right? So NFP, the news was technically bad for the US dollar, which would send Bitcoin and gold up. Obviously, Bitcoin was sent up and gold went sideways, which again is part of my reasoning why I think it's going to explode this week because the news was bad for the dollar and the gold didn't do anything at all. So I think it was just waiting for the next week to happen, and then now it's going to explode. So looking at the dailies, as you can see, we pushed up from this area, and then we tested these highs again, and then we went sideways. And these 2 days, this is Saturday and Sunday's candle, which is very expected that we've been sideways because Bitcoin typically goes pretty sideways on the weekend. Now, with the idea in mind of seeing Bitcoin push up into these highs, I want to see a possible buy opportunity. And where do I see that happening is somewhere below this wick. So let's dive into the 4 hour. This is that wick right here. So I want to enter below this level. Okay? So what I'm looking for below this level is areas of liquidity, which every time I say liquidity, I'm talking about areas where price pulled back into slightly or pushed down into, and you can flip those terms if we're, talking about going the other direction, and then exploded. So on the 4 hour, this is very obvious right here. So I want to investigate that a little bit. So I'm going to go all the way into the 30-minute time frame. And let's look at what happened. So price tapped out that daily low. All right, that daily low was right here, somewhere around here. Price pushed up, and then it pulled down into this area, and then this is the candle that NFP happened, and as you can see, Bitcoin just exploded. So this area tells me that there's lots of buy orders in this area. So let's go a little bit further. We'll go all the way to 5-minute time frame. And what do I see? This right here. Okay, I'm going to tell you why. So price pushed up here, it pulled back. We had this huge slingshot, right? Pulled all the way back down here. We pushed up, but then it pulled back again. See right here? If this was the last, I'm trying to think of a term for it. If this was the last low and it was going to explode like how it did here, if this was the last low, it would have kept going, but it wasn't. And it wasn't because whoever is moving the market decided to not have it explode yet. They want to buy in more. Where did they buy in more at? Right here. Okay, so now I'm going to move this down right here. 45,117. This is the Coinbase chart, so it might be slightly different if you're using a different uh, broker chart. But this right here, I'm going to highlight under it slightly. I'm going to do 20 pips. And now I'm going to zoom back out. And where are we? There we are. So this area is where I'm looking to take buys from on Bitcoin. And buys on this area just to the first level is 360 pips, and up here would be another 100 pips, so 460 pips. I don't think price is going to hit this high, but that's where kind of like a guideline of where I want to enter between and where my stop loss wants to be above, right? So that's kind of why this line is here, which this is the daily imbalance line. I'll show you that in just a minute. But yeah, this is what I'm looking for is some point. I would like to see it tonight. I would really like to see it tonight, but maybe it won't happen tonight. Let me put an alert under that low so we know when it's approaching. So that's what I'm looking for. And as you can see, it looks like it's going to sell too. I mean, I know someone that's calling a major sell-off from this area. I think he's halfway right. I do think it's going to sell from this area, but I think we're going to get that buy right around this level right here. What I think is going to happen is the candle might touch this, but the wick might go lower than that. Just lower than that because it likes to stop that out. So, excuse me. I'm drinking some carbonated stuff here. So I'm just going to quickly draw this because as you can see, you know what? Get this line out of here. I honestly hate using trend lines. This looks very, very valid for a sell. So the probability of price coming down here, whether it's going to buy up or not, is very high. But yes, I'm definitely looking to take a buy entry once price gets right in here, because it's just this sort of accumulation in this price action after does not line up with a major sell-off accumulation. There has to be something higher than this, which I think that's what we're going to buy too. I think we're going to spike a little bit above this, and pretty much I'm looking to enter as close to 49,000 as possible. So if price pushes up to like 48,800 and it starts turning around, I'm going to enter. Even if it goes higher to like, 20 pips higher, and then it starts turning around again, I'll enter more. So that is what's going on in the micro level. And this is why I have this level marked up here, because that is the daily imbalance. So there's nothing more to it than that. Actually, that's it. This low of the wick is the reason why this level is here. And what's interesting is if we look at both of these levels, I'm gonna zoom in a little bit and I'll just scroll sideways. Look at the history of price at these levels for a minute. Respects it pretty well, right? So these levels are very significant to me, which is why I believe, I mean, we haven't even hit that one yet. That's why it's almost, these are one of these trades that's like, it's almost guaranteed, you know what I mean? Like, it's almost like, for a fact it's going to happen. That's how I feel, at least. So I might put a buy order there. As you can see, I remember this trade I bought right here. Literally, I had a buy order at 36 or 37,650, literally right here. Um, this is also the weekly open. Okay, right here on 20, right there. So this is possible. See how we were up here? We were consolidating. I'm gonna draw a box. See, we were consolidating right here, and then we have this daily low right here, which is equivalent to this daily low. Okay. What happened was price was chilling. We saw a rejection, and then it just dumped, and then it came right back up, and then it kind of chopped around a little bit, looked all goofy, and then it started moving up. But this concept right here, this is the daily low, right? We installed, then we spiked on. But you know what? Let's go to the daily. This is the daily low I'm talking about, and this is it pushed down, and then you noticed how there was two 4-hour candles there. This is the close, and this is the start of that two 4-hour candles. And look at again an example of the wicks. Look at this wick is higher than that one, or sorry, it's lower than that one. Right? It's never a coincidence. It happens like that for a reason. So that's essentially what I'm looking for. I'm not saying this daily is going to close down here or anything like that. I would personally love to see this daily close up here and then see a massive wick down and then maybe a close, maybe like a pin bar and then followed by some more pressure. Something relatively quick, kind of like this, you know what I mean? How we got huge wick down, the next day pushed up, and then obviously from then on, this isn't what I'm looking for here, but same concept of how we just push down and then come right back up. Um, I don't even know if there's like a very clean example of it. Let's see, this is 30A, that's 100 pips high. No, probably not any super good examples. I mean, sort of like this, right? Huge wick down, push up, spike higher, and then we start draining. But yeah, not really any good examples to show on the chart at the moment. But yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So we'll see what happens. If this spike doesn't happen today, it happens tomorrow. Whatever on tomorrow's daily candle, that would almost be like Tuesday then. Um, no matter if it happens tonight on Monday's candle or tomorrow night on Tuesday candle, that doesn't matter. What matters is I believe price is going to pull in here and then we're going to push up into this high and then from here we're going to turn around. I think it's going to be fairly quick. I want to see something crazy like push down here and explode up because again, this is like 400 pips. That's not a small movement, right? I mean, I could copy this candle and put it right here and that wouldn't even get us, to this high. So I do think if we tap down into this area, we are going to see a crazy push up. It won't be slow. It won't, take forever. I think it's going to come down and it's going to push right back up. And as we can see, it's possible. I mean, look what happened. Pretty much every time it dumps, it explodes, right? Every time it's about to dump, it just explodes. So that's kind of what I'm looking for is an explosion. But I want to take that buy entry right around 45,000. And that's a wrap, guys. That's all I got. That's all I'm looking for this week. Is essentially just watching gold. Um, I'm looking to buy Bitcoin down here. And I believe this week for sure we will get that sell entry up here. I believe that'll happen on the second 3-day cycle of this week. So that would be after Wednesday. I believe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're going to be the push up. And then Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Is that how that lines up? You guys get the idea. I think this next 3-day candle will be bullish, and then the next one will be where we enter, and then from then on we hold and accumulate more and more sell positions, similar to what we're doing with gold. Kind of like this. This is exactly what I'm talking about right here. See this? Huge push up on the first 3-day candle. Second 3-day candle, we get the sell entry. Same thing going on 100 different times. Like this, ready? Huge 3-day candle. And look, the next one spikes higher, and then we see a dump, right? That's what I'm talking about, guys. Even this huge wick down. Let's measure this. 209 pips down, and then it goes up 800 pips. And then the next, it pushes down. So let's pretend this candle closed right here. That's only 150, right? So it doesn't even have to be to that extent, which I don't think it will be. My main focus is this next 3-day candle wick coming lower than these 3-day candle wicks, and more specifically lower than this one, and that lines up with this. So everything's lining up very well. This should be a good week. That's all I got, guys. We'll see you next week.